So Jewel Taylor, the director of this movie, this is his first time directorial debut helming this film, They Clone Tyrone, which premiered a few weeks ago on Netflix. However, he is not a novice when it comes to Hollywood. He's actually a writer on recent sequel films such as Creed 2 and Space
Mm.
Jam: A New Legacy. So he definitely has the pedigree with mainstream entertainment, especially recent black mainstream entertainment. But this is his first time behind the camera helming his first feature film. And They Clone Tyrone is also a movie that we've been waiting on for quite a while. I believe when Netflix was initially promoting this movie, it was actually slated to come out last year, I believe in the fall, maybe even the winter time of last year. But due to unknown reasons that we're not necessarily privy to, they decided to push this back a little bit. And so it finally released just a couple of weeks ago. And it also is interesting to note that this released in the midst of the Barbenheimer phenomenon, which is kind of really the last
Yeah.
time that we recorded. So we haven't gotten a chance to talk about this film, but I know it's something that we both were excited about and we both got a chance to check out over the past couple of weeks. So with all of that out the way, man, I will pass it over to you. What did you think about They Clone Tyrone?
It was actually kind of easy, I think, to be both excited and afraid for They Clone Tyrone initially, first and foremost, because just Netflix in general, we know how Netflix original movies have gone here in the past. And so when They Clone Tyrone first started showing pictures and who was going to be in the movie, you telling me John Boyega, Tiana Paris, and Jamie Foxx are going to star in a movie together, I had to be excited. And then you tell me it's a Netflix movie, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen here. And so it was definitely a mixed bag of emotions, but still excited nonetheless to see this movie. And then the trailer comes out and you're like, wait a second, what really is this thing? It's a sci-fi mystery, kind of thing going on here that I'm not expecting, especially particularly with Tiana Paris and Jamie Foxx's characters. They are playing into like some black exploitation characters. So it really was like, man, there's a lot of good ideas here. I don't know what to expect. And so getting into the movie, man, They Clone Tyrone is just this crazy, wild, just hood mystery, low key, about literally a pimp, a hoe, and a drug dealer have now accidentally become superheroes because they might be cloning people within their neighborhood and they might be using them for some other social experiments. And so, man, this movie comes out, and I think it has a decent amount of flavor to it. I really like the way this movie is shot. I think I wasn't expecting how well this movie would be shot, because again, overall, for the most part, there's not a ton of like Netflix movies where I'm like, oh my god, that had a bunch of style. You know what I mean? There might be like some decent story stuff, but this movie had a lot of flavor. And so I give attribution to Joelle Taylor being, their directorial debut, going pretty decent, but behind the camera here. Of course, the cast is phenomenal. John Boyega, Tiana Paris, and Jamie Foxx again do what they need to do. All three of them are funny. John Boyega's character is not supposed to be funny, but he is. It's just because all of the circumstances that are going on. Yo-Yo, Tiana Paris's character, might low-key be my favorite, even more than Jamie Foxx's character. I don't know. It really varies between those two, but they did what they needed to do in this film, and I think they brought a decent amount of, I think, experience to the movie too, which really helped because I could see a movie like this being done in the cast not being as experienced, and some of those jokes that are having to be made, or some of these character tropes having to be made, falling kind of underneath. I think I don't know, just kind of lack of experience. Like, I felt Jamie Foxx experience in the movie. I was like, I don't know if anybody else could have said that, and that would have been funny to me. But it was funny because it was delivered correctly. So I appreciate the cast for everything they brought to the movie as well. The story is swinging. I think there's a couple things we've seen here before here recently between movies like the Get Outs and things like that. There even like some Black Dynamite stuff in here. I was kind of feeling like, I feel like I've seen, bits and pieces of these conspiracy things before. But I think overall it's a fine watch. I was expecting a little more, to be honest. First two acts, they had me. Something about the third act I really like, but it doesn't bring it home all the way. It's something about there's a story beat in there that I'm like, okay, but this feels like it had been done before. I was like, and I think it took me away just a little bit in the end. But for the most part, leading up to that third act, I had a pretty good time with this film. Again, I think it was shot well. I think the music was doing what it needed to do, and the acting was pretty good for the most part across the board. I just wish the story brought it home a little bit harder, and I think it would have been a slightly better movie for me. But overall, I enjoyed it, and I think Netflix has a little mini win on their hands, just as they did with what's the name of the cowboy movie, The Harder They Fall? What's the name of that movie?
Yeah.
They did a decent job with that, and I was surprised at that. And I think They Clone Tyrone kind of falls under the same vein because it's something about these black stories that I don't know. I get anxious about, especially again when it comes to Netflix and their inconsistency. I get anxious about, but I'm glad to say I think they have another little secret, pretty decent movie under their belt with They Clone Tyrone.
So, as I noted earlier, this is something that we've been waiting on for a while now, at least a year, maybe a year and a half at this point. And so I've been just like eagerly anticipating the release of They Clone Tyrone. As you already said, the release of Netflix original movies has been, for me, mostly misses. I really don't enjoy a lot of the output, which is unfortunate because they always get stacked casts and really stellar talent in front of and I would say behind the camera. And it's also an interesting landscape to where a lot of new burgeoning filmmakers can sort of make their name with Netflix directorial debuts, as we see here in the case of Jewel Taylor. And once I finally got a chance to check out They Clone Tyrone, I was pleasantly surprised to say that I had a pretty good time with the movie. I love the premise of it, and I love the idea that it is this melting pot of all these different genres that it is trying to tackle. It's part black exploitation, it's part government conspiracy. There's influences from all sorts of other cinematic and musical things that you can pull reference from. Everything from musical things like a Bootsy Collins to movie
Mhm.
references like Jackie Brown from Quentin Tarantino or Boogie Nights. Like all of that stuff
Yeah.
is being integrated into the story, and it feels fresh in that respect because we are following three black leads essentially tackling what is sort of a mystery. And I love what Jewel Taylor said about the movie. He said what kind of inspired him was to tell a ghetto sort of Scooby Doo style tale where the
Yep.
heroes who were at the forefront of the story, they don't necessarily know what they're doing. They're kind of inadequate, but somehow they become perfect for solving the mystery at hand. And so they can come together and utilize all of their knowledge, all of their wits and resources in order to figure out what's going on here. And so you really get this interesting and I think charismatic dynamic between the three main leads, between John Boyega, Tiana Paris, and Jamie Foxx. They were all absolutely incredible. Jamie Foxx is hilarious as usual, coming in as Slick Charles. He was having so much fun, and I had so much fun watching him, especially considering everything that we've been hearing about him in the media. Just to know that he was able to get this off of his chest and to film something like this and to just go
Hmm.
balls to the wall with it. Jamie is like one of the few celebrities that excels at literally everything he does at the highest level. He does comedy at the highest level. He does dramatic acting at the highest level. He does music at the highest level. Like he's really in a league of his own. And once again, I think They Clone Tyrone once
Hmm.
again proves that he's always going to be good anytime he shows up. Even in movies that I didn't necessarily enjoy as much, like last year's Day Shift, Jamie Foxx wasn't the issue. He was still very much a
Right.
treat to watch. And then the story as it unfolds, it is interesting. It does really pull you in and allows you to lean in to want to know more. But I'm of a similar mind as you that the third act doesn't quite deliver, I think, the satisfying conclusion that you would expect out of this movie. The first two acts had a lot of steam behind them, but by the third act, I don't know, maybe they jumped the shark. Maybe the cart
Hmm.
got a little bit too far ahead of the horse with the story. Maybe they felt like they had to really do something that was kind of wild and over the top, which you would sort of expect with this movie when you're talking about cloning. I mean, this is already sort of a fantastical thing, or maybe it's not so fantastical, depending on who you may ask, because there are conspiracy theorists out there that believe in this type of thing. But I do think that they lost a little bit of steam by the end. And so that was one of the things that kind of brought it down a little bit for me. And there's a lot of ideas and a lot of different things that they're trying to tackle here, even as it relates to the representation of Black people in the media, which I do love that message there as well. And also just the location of it. You mentioned how it's shot. I think a lot of that is also attributed to the location of it. This is very much a Southern style movie. At
Hmm.
one point, I thought it might have been in like a throwback LA. It almost kind of felt like what I'm watching on Winning Time on HBO. But then I realized that this is very Southern. And when you think about Southern locations, some Southern locations just don't always have the resources. And so this place, though it's taking place in modern times, they don't have all the resources of a newer town or
Right.
of a newer city, right? And so I love
Hmm.
that they kind of leaned into that a lot with the aesthetic of the movie. So there's a lot to enjoy about it. There's a lot of themes. There's some really great performances, some funny comedies, some great costume and production design, and some incredible cinematography. It's just kind of one of those things that doesn't quite wrap up the bow as neatly by the end of it as you would like it to. But overall, still a really enjoyable experience. And I think I would certainly say it's better than most recent Netflix films that we've seen
Yes.
lately. And they release a lot, and it certainly stands kind of head and shoulders above a lot of their recent output. And so I'm excited to see hopefully what they do next with Black actors and Black creators behind the scenes, and what comes next from their slate of films. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on the Netflix feature film They Clone Tyrone. If you've checked out this movie, definitely hit us up and let us know what you think.